It's your legal bestie, attorney Symone. I am coming to you live from outside of the courthouse at the Diddy trial, and we're going to recap what went down today with the second portion, the afternoon testimony from Jane Doe. And there was some real interesting bombshells. Now I'll start with that as you guys come on in. Let's see the comments. All right, hit that subscribe as you guys come on in. It says, I've been waiting for this notification all day, girl. And I'm sorry, I'm not usually I like to set my notifications about 30 minutes in advance, but I can't do that because we're not allowed to have our phone in the courtroom. So as soon as I come out, I want to update you. Well, okay, so today Jane got on the stand. And again, yesterday when I talked about it, I thought, okay, I am looking for information about how he was abusive to Jane or how he tried to blackmail her with X tapes, any of that. We still haven't heard about any of that. Today, she had a full day of testimony. However, it's still somewhat early because the prosecution was saying that their hope is to do a full day with her on Monday and to conclude the direct at the end of the day Monday, but they can't even promise for that. So hit that like as you come on in. So what that means is that there's still a lot that the government wants to cover. But y'all, she basically went through the relationship, and yeah, the rain is coming. So I'm gonna take cover. I can feel some sprinkles. We'll do what I can. But um, basically, one of the crazy things that I was shocked to learn is so number one, I've confirmed the theory for the prosecution. Their theory is that Jane was ex trafficked because based on coercion, not force so far, but coercion and fraud. The fraud is that he continued to promise her that, oh, this will be like that he would take her on a trip, and then on the subsequent trip, she wouldn't have to perform in any of these freakoffs. That was a fraud. And that she stopped hanging out with her girlfriends. She stopped going to events. She stopped doing other things because those would upset him. And in turn, her expectation was that he would then, not require her to do these every single time. Now, it's not clear if her expectation is that he would then not require her to do them at all, or maybe there would be a bigger mix of like quality time. But the gist of what she talked about, so I was really shocked that they're gonna add in an additional ex trafficking charge based on fraud, with the fraud being that basically she found out that one of his other girlfriends, he took her, young Miami, he took her on a trip for her birthday, rented a villa, got a private jet, invited all her homegirls. And she literally, her birthday was somewhere around that time. And for her birthday, he did like hardly anything. He basically just got a hotel room and had her do an FO, had her do a freak off on her own birthday. So then she sees that, oops, sorry guys, let's do this. Put on my do not disturb. There we go. There we go. When I put on that do not disturb, then she sees that he's done so much more for Young Miami, and she literally, yes, they described Young Miami as his business partner. So she had become uh, like envious of his relationship with her because he had left her and told her that, oh, he wasn't going to go do anything. He wasn't feeling well, only for her to see on social media that he's in the gym with Young Miami and somewhere else. And like she's at his house. Now, he described Young Miami, quote, as his business partner. And she sent a text message to him upset saying that not only she said you call her your business partner, you know that's not just your business partner, that's not that. And also you throw in my face how she does things for you financially. So apparently Diddy was telling Jane about how Young Miami will buy him things, will spoil him, will do stuff for him. Well, that was really interesting to me because it was like Young Miami in his life is providing value outside of the bedroom, right? She's got the Carisha Please show. She's got music, music stuff in the industry, all this different type of stuff. Whereas, and so as a result of her providing him value outside of the bedroom, he is spending time with her outside of the bedroom. Versus this woman, there's been no discussion of what she provides of value other than being drop dead gorgeous and being available to him. So it's almost like he Diddy sees Jane as a sex toy and treats her like one, whereas Diddy is seeing other women in different ways. At this point, Kim is past, so we can't compare that, but and treating them separately. Keep that in mind. One of the other bombshells is that Diddy was so serious about these freak-offs that at one point they were in different towns or different places, and she texts him that, "Hey, how about the next time I see you, we can have an all-star freak-off?" He's like, "Well, what's that?" The all-star freak-off. She was going to hire three or four of their top male hookers, right? Three or four of the top hookers, the biggest schlongs, the biggest D. And they were going to have one night where it was just an all star night. And she was just going to give it to them. She was going to give it to all of them on one night just to make him happy. She volunteered this, y'all. She volunteered this in 2023, at some point in 2023. They had started dating in 21. So as a result of, and this was going to be their first link up after they had broken up. They had broken up for about 6 weeks or so. So in that, she was coordinating that. Well, apparently she started to get cold feet. And so she was kind of walking it back. She's like, "I'm tired, I'm sick." And Diddy was figuring out, and Diddy didn't want to hear nothing about it. He was not with it. Well, she said she got her cycle. She takes a picture of the toilet tissue and texts it to him to say, "Well, no, because he's like, F you, you're playing with my emotions, you're playing with me, X, Y, and Z." So she sends literally the tissue paper, her cycle. Sorry, guys, I'm back. Sorry, someone called, so it knocked out my call. I'm so sorry. Uh, so so literally she sends the toilet tissue to prove she's on her cycle. Then that wasn't good enough. He's still mad. He's calling her names. So then hours have progressed, and then she takes out her tampon, takes a photo of it, and sends it to him as proof. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me." And he's still mad. There was audio where da, 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 um where she's upset about it, and he tells her, including he says, "You need to get on your job." Get on your job, referring to her doing FOs as part of her jobs. He said, "You need to get on your job." And and she wrote him back. I was proud of her for standing up for herself. She says, "I've been on my job for 2.5 years. You just got on hers." Because at this point, he had just got her the house, and says, "We can just call this even." So he wrote back, "Even." But she said, "You've been threatening me any chance you could get." And by that, she said she meant hovering about the house, guilt tripping her about the house. So listen, so I looked up for S trafficking, the definitions that refer to fraud, force, and coercion. Here, as of now, we don't have any evidence of force. Force is what they're talking about with Cassie, the beatings, the beat downs, all of that. Fraud, the in order to prove fraud for S trafficking, you have to show that the what you promised her was a material thing to her, so material that if you hadn't promised her that, she would not then be performing the X acts. That's what it is. And the government actually admitted after court, there was like a bunch of hearings, the government admitted that they are in fact trying to prove up this S trafficking based on the fraud, y'all. And here's the fraud. I need to hear in the comments if you agree with this as being a form of fraud for S trafficking, or how you feel the jury might receive it. The fraud is that he continued to promise her that basically they would be able to spend quality time together the next trip. The example they gave is that he then, "Hey, Dennis is back. Say hello." Hey, Dennis. Yes. That the next trip he promised her they would go to Turks and Caicos. This is a trip to Turks and Caicos, and on that trip it would just be them, and it would be great, and it would be romantic. On the first day, that first night, he calls over a male hooker. I think it was Paul. He calls over Paul. She's not feeling it. She gets upset. She actually takes off the bracelet that he had given her that day for her birthday and throws it and says, "You just want me to be your, whore. You just want me to be your prostitute." And she's upset and she runs out. And he chases at, like, walks after her, finds her. She's boohooing and crying. And he's like, "Why would you embarrass me in front of Paul like that?" Mind y'all, Paul is Diddy's personal trainer. Diddy has hired his personal trainer to do these freak offs. Somebody says, "Is her identity protected?" Yeah, I'm not allowed to say her identity. And, like, the people in the courtroom are not allowed to reveal who she is, or we can't go back. That rule doesn't apply to anyone else. So yeah, it is gaslighting. So Diddy then says, "How dare you embarrass me in front of Paul?" Paul so then she's then, excuse me, Paul's there for another day and then he leaves, right? And Diddy's has an attitude. They sleep in separate rooms. He's super upset. Thank you so much for this super chat. Hold on, let me try to put it on the screen. LTD says, "Has there been any mention of Carisha?" Yes, there has. Yeah, I'm just talking about how Carisha came up because what happened was she was so upset. Her birthday came and all he did was schedule a freak off. And then she subsequently sees days later that he leaves her, or whatever, it's days later, that he throws a huge birthday for Carisha. He rents a private jet, flies out all her friends, rents a villa, and that's what and takes her to Turks. And that broke this girl's heart. She was like, "This is all I ever wanted, la di da di da." It was upsetting to her. So, um, uh, uh, yeah. And so that was super upsetting to her. And so in turn, the prosecution is now saying that was fraud, that him lying to her to get her come out on these trips, or lying to her to get her to link up, only for him to have a male escort walk into the room, was fraud sufficient to prove up as trafficking. I am shocked. Hey, I actually might need that in a second. Oh my gosh. My friend Dennis here, he's got an umbrella for me just in case. And I just thought to myself, you want a jury to compare what Cassie is going to, and it's not a comparison, right? Both people both counts, they can be found, he can be found guilty of. But my concern as an attorney is that this could really water down and create a gray area for this evidence because they're so distinctly different. Now, not only are they claiming, here we go, it's a that's not a fraud, it's just a lie. Right. So the defense is just going to come in and say, "Oh, that was just a boyfriend lying to you because you were complaining about what he did for his other girlfriends." But in order for it to satisfy to be a sufficient fraud for S trafficking, it has to be proven that it was so material to her that she would not have continued the relationship, or she would not have engaged in the sex if that promise hadn't been given. The problem is she kept doing it. No, I don't think that's true. Uh, the promise is she kept doing it. And it said, "Wasn't Carisha part of his marketing team?" Yes. Deception can be a form of fraud, but again, the problem is, well, the challenge is going to be with the jury. They have to be with it. They have to be willing to see it in that way. However, in addition, the concern is these jurors are going to be concerned, like, wait a minute, could that be my son? Are we opening up a slippery slope where I'm the boyfriend and I'm like, "Hey, I'm gonna buy you a house if you sleep with me. I'm gonna buy you a house if you give me a threesome." And I keep promising and I don't. Is that now S trafficking? Where's the gray line here? Or was Diddy just tricking? And part of what he wanted from this particular woman was this type of sex. You guys are the jury. That's why I call you that. Hit the subscribe. But secondly, they're going to try and also get to S trafficking via coercion. Now, I looked up the definition of coercion again. And there is a version of coercion where it could be considered coercion if you are threatening financial harm. It has to be substantial financial harm. So, how I was like, you got to be kidding me to, you know, for the prosecution to have this working class jury. And the question being, was him withholding the 10K a month if she did not continue to engage in these acts? Is that S trafficking? Is that sufficient coercion? That's going to be up to the jury. Someone said it could also prove a pattern. So I don't think that it's the substances that he gave her so much as the substances, of course, clouded her mind, but she agreed to take them. But the question is, do you feel that someone, that your boyfriend saying, if you don't want to have sex with me in this way that I would like to have sex, and and I therefore want to break up with you and won't pay your bills, but for 3 more months. See, I think the challenge, one of the challenges is that, but it says 3 more months. So does that take away the financial harm, right? It's going to give her 3 months to then find her some other way to pay or move or any of that. And it was initially a 2-year lease. Y'all, do you know today Diddy is still paying her rent? He is still paying her rent today. Today. And in addition, she gets an additional approximately $7,000 in child support. So when you're looking at the level of coercion, right, you have to consider all of her assets. That's all relevant. So she was getting 6K a month before. And apparently, I'm sorry, she was getting like 7K a month before and living on it some kind of way. And then now he's giving you 10 and you're saying you can't live on it. Now you're the person that chose to get the $10,000 a month rental property. I don't know if that's going to get you there. So that is not me. No, girl, stop. Chuck's love. I'm telling the truth. The jury literally is just sitting there. Some of them are not, they're not taking notes. Some of them are just sitting there. So are we, the question was, how was she paying her rent before here? Before him, she was living in an apartment somewhere else and was paying it just fine. Now, he was giving her money throughout the relationship, but it wasn't on a consistent basis. She testified today that she was very grateful and happy about the 10,000 because she felt like now she was going to have basically something to show for it, that it was him making an effort. The words she specifically used, I got to hear that he was trying to make it up, that it was him, basically showing that he really cared about her, and it was him making a sacrifice and contribution as well. And I thought, that's crazy. I thought, oh, she said it would create, quote, a balance in the relationship. She said she saw it as this was him giving her something that made her feel real love. Y'all, the defense is going to tear that up. That real love to you is 10K a month. And that before you were getting 10K a month, you didn't feel that you were being loved? Or is this now more worthwhile? Someone is saying, I'm confused. Sometimes she's down with it. And then other times she says she's not. I think the defense is going to highlight this and cross. It's going to be challenging. Somebody says the math isn't mathing on this one. This was absolute. Someone says it was absolutely fraud. Fraud is simply making false promises. They do have to be material promises, but it is making false promises. It says Diddy's whole thing is a romance scam. He makes the women believe he loves them to manipulate them into XX. All right, you guys are the jury. You guys get to decide. Well, hold on. So it wasn't just that. Um, Also, I was thinking of it this way. By him buying her the house, it really benefits him too, because now he's able to save on hotels. He no longer needs to book hotels. He actually was asking her about it after he got her the house and was like, well, when's it going to be ready? Because he wanted to schedule a freakoff at the house. Now, her baby daddy is going to be livid. Her baby daddy is going to get that transcript and send it directly to whatever family attorney, law attorney he has. So it says, yeah, she talked about, um, they basically Diddy talked about using her house where she lives to this day for freakoffs. Someone said men make false promises all the time in relationships. Is that fraud? That's going to be the question for the jury. Is that fraud? Is that coercion? Y'all are asking me about Tisa. I don't know. I just came straight out the courtroom and I'm just bringing you guys the summary. Um, she talked more than once about being, she would say all the time, I just wanted to make him happy. He was my lover. He was my partner. She saw them as, for her side, a monogamous relationship. Interestingly, they've done a strong job of not mentioning who her kid's father is. But there was an argument between the two of them, her and Diddy, where she told Diddy, that's really messed up of you. You keep throwing up let's see, how does that? You keep bringing up my child's father, and in this argument with her, and she was like, that's ridiculous. It's a low blow. So I found that interesting. Whatever that portion of the text message was, though, they actually didn't read it on the stage. They didn't read it on the stand. And then the audio says, oh, there was audio as well, where he says, ain't nobody got time for games. You need to get on your job. You need to get on your job. I actually think that's going to be helpful towards proving up for the prosecution as trafficking, that he's referring to it as her job, as what she does. And he says, you need to get on your job. I'm doing my job. In other words, I'm paying your bills. You need to give me the sex that I want. She said, and that's where she said, I've been on my job for 2.5 years. You just got on yours. She told him, you've been threatening me every chance you get. You guilt tripped me. You know what he told her? He told her in an audio, well, just move on. Just move on. Y'all, the defense is going to pick that up. Diddy is telling her, move on from this relationship. Hey, girlie, no problem. Thank you. Yeah, it's attorney Symone Redwine on Instagram. And it's girl, is that legal on YouTube? Thank you. Um, yeah. So literally, I thought it was very interesting that they elicited the prosecution that Diddy, they played the audio where Diddy tells the girl, just move on. Just move on. She says, I can't move on and forgive you until you apologize. You keep threatening me. He said, that's not a threat, that's a promise. As in, he's not going to talk to her anymore. So I guess the prosecution is trying to say that is a threat to stop funding her financially. And she said, but you sent me this dry A card. And he said, girl, stop sending me these long text messages. So what does she do? Sends him another long text message, goes into a huge soliloquy. Another thing that's interesting here, it appears that Diddy cannot, finish, he cannot explode unless it is this specific type of intimacy. Notice there's no women involved. It's never her and a girl. It's always her and a guy. And specifically, she's testified that it's guys with real big, private parts. She also testified that on her birthday, she was hurt because on her birthday, he made her do a trilogy. Okay. One guy, then that guy left, took a little break, another guy, and another guy. And that just broke her heart because then subsequently she saw that for Young Miami's birthday, that's not how we did Young Miami. Young Miami got a private jet. Yay, private jet. So then let's talk about what offenses. Here we go. What offenses might her testimony help prove up? Number one, it's definitely helpful to prove up more of the allegations of transportation for prostitution. Because and thank you so much for that super chat. So, Maine, I'm answering your question as far as how many charges do I think he gets convicted of now? So, what I'm thinking is, I still think the prostitution is the strongest charge. I still think that's the strongest. I think the struggle with RICO is this, y'all. Thank you so much, Maine. The struggle with RICO is the fact that, here we go, put that down. I just got word. They said KK is not coming to the stand. KK isn't testifying. And I feel like they probably needed KK up there to kind of just wrap that RICO up into a nice little bow. Now, they could still get there on the testimony we've had so far, but part of the confusion is nothing Jane has testified to has really incorporated the RICO. It's a lot of private sex acts with her boyfriend, even the substances. So, secondly, there's been more evidence of drug substance distribution, right? She even talked about getting on a plane for Diddy, going and getting some and bringing it back to him. The problem is the evidence we're seeing is just the two of them doing those substances. She specifically said she had a rule that said no substances, meaning the sex workers couldn't take the substances. It was only her and Diddy. Now, it's different if Diddy has her or anyone else getting the substances and then sharing it with the workers, having a party, giving it to other people. That, in fact, would be the distribution. But I believe the defense is going to say, oh, that was just the two of them. They had a drug problem. It was drugs for their personal use, and that's it. It says, what is she getting out of testifying? Great question. I think that she's probably testifying. Her testimony is her only, I see it as This is her only attempt at having any chance of salvaging any custody at all with her child. Because this testimony, pursuant to a federal indictment, makes her a victim rather than making her a coerced and or forced victim. Remember, that's the indictment, as opposed to a willing participant in these sexcapades with the substances, with the drugs, with the, she testified she had to be available at Diddy's beck and call. She testified she'd have to have, child care available. I think one of the things that she would be getting out of this, if that makes sense, let me know if that makes sense in the chat, is that it will help her. I don't know about Tisa, y'all. I don't know about Tisa. Those are asking. It will help her with respect to her custody situation. Also, remember, uh, the only money she's gets is child support and Diddy paying the rent. And she testified Diddy still pays her rent today. That says to me, she wasn't gonna stop. And the fact that Diddy pays her rent today, y'all, the defense is going to have a field day. Here's why. Because it means she hasn't been doing freakoffs since last September when he got locked up, right? Because he wasn't out to do a freakoff. So now the defense is going to say, no, this money wasn't contingent upon your freakoffs because we're still paying your rent. And there's clearly not been a freakoff. She said their last freakoff was August of 24. So just before him, just weeks before him getting locked up. Somebody said defense is good. I think that's going to go in their favor. And if I was the prosecution, if I knew that he's still continuing to pay her rent, I think I wouldn't try to bring financial force coercion as my claim, especially with her getting, as we said, prior to that, she was living on 7K a month. Also, for the first 2 years of the relationship, Diddy was not paying her rent. So the question becomes, well, honey, who was paying your rent for the first 2 years? And if the issue is that you can't afford 10K a month, but could afford something else, then the issue is perhaps you picking an apartment that was too expensive, not Diddy wanted freaky freaks. That's just another way to look at it. So yes, KK, I just received word, KK is not listed to testify. And I had my suspicions because the other day there was an argument about a piece of evidence that was a text message string, a text message thread that had Diddy, it had, it had Diddy, it had D-Rock, and it had KK. D-Rock isn't testifying either, y'all. He's not. They're going. I feel like they're gonna need. If they can't get KK, they're gonna need another security person. So we're gonna cross our fingers. Perhaps Roger Bonds, but no. The reason I'm confident now that she's not coming is because the reason they were fighting over getting that evidence in is because neither of them were going to be testifying. Because if either of them testified, if D-Rock was going to come testify, or if KK was going to come testify, there would be no argument about getting in their text string. It'd be like just like all the other witnesses, where they put the text on the screen and say, "Do you recognize this text?" And the witness themselves could do what's called authenticate it. I don't know why KK isn't coming, y'all. Thank you for joining the membership. Hit that subscribe, y'all. I don't know why she did that, but yes, coercion, fraud, fraudulent inducement. Um, yeah, listen, and there's been no accusations either of physical violence at this point. Now, they said the prosecution is going to have at least all day Monday. She might need a little more time on Tuesday. But I want to ask you guys in the chat, if in fact, hit that subscribe, guys. If in fact there's no evidence of physical violence with respect to this ex trafficking charge, does it change your view? And then lastly, overall, I'm going to give my legal opinion on this. Oops. Thank you so much, Kathy. Let's see what we got here. It says they have weak witnesses. They have to convince the jury. I get it because I have you explaining the RICO to me. Thank you. Yeah, I think that this additional S trafficking claim that they are using Jane Doe to prove up, I think it could actually do more harm than help because it could look like overreaching and it could create confusion and gray area comparing what she went through to what Cassie went through. Now, mind you, this woman, this was not voluntary. She's not, I'm sorry, she's not testifying under immunity. And that's because when it's a allegation like trafficking by coercion, they're considered a victim, so they don't need to offer them for immunity because they're not going to charge them with anything. But I want your thoughts on this, and this will be my final thoughts. Initially, with the indictment, they were not alleging trafficking for Jane Doe. It was just Cassie. So, me as an attorney, I think they probably should have left it as just Cassie that was trafficked. I think this looks crazy. He looks like a horrible boyfriend. He had that girl do a trilogy, bow, 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 3 men back to back on her birthday all night. It was like 24 or 30 hours. It's disgusting. It's horrific. But I just don't know if this jury is going to see the fraud being defraud by telling her, oh, well, next time you're not going to have to do this. And then she does it. She has even testified that during this period, she set up what was called an all-star night with this other male hooker because she wanted to, quote, make up for the time when she had her period and didn't perform for Diddy. And Diddy was excited. She literally said, well, I wanted to make it up to him. This keeps sounding like you're just, your boyfriend's got a bunch of girlfriends and you just want to be competitive. And that's going to be the challenge. You got to get that out of the jury's mind, and you've got to have them see her as a victim who did not have the control and the ability to, basically a victim of substantial harms, threats. Here, the coercion has to be substantial. And it can either be on the fraud, where he's saying, next time you're not going to have to do this, or it could be under coercion, which can include threats of serious financial harm. So the question has to be, was the threat, was there actually a threat in the first place that if you don't, be this nasty girl here, that I'm not going to pay your rent? Well, the defense now has the proof because she said to this day, he's still paying her rent. So now there's proof that, well, he kept paying the rent after you stopped doing freakoffs. That was brilliant of the defense, by the way, to have her, to have Diddy continue paying her rent. It was also brilliant of the defense to have him continue paying her rent because it makes him look like a good guy and makes him look sympathetic. It also makes it look like he's not tampering with witnesses, guys. If he was going to do that, he wouldn't be paying a government witness. Felicia, let's see. Please, thank you for the super chat, Felicia. It says, just supporting the channel. Love the content. I really appreciate you. We've also got V. Calhoun. Isn't the trafficking based off of the escorts who traveled in multiple cities? No, no, no. I'm so glad you asked me that. Now I'm trying to figure out. Hold on. I'm trying to move this. I want to try to put this one on the stage. Let's do this one. This is an excellent question. I got the weak witnesses. I know. I've seen that one. Hold on. It was, isn't the trafficking? Hold on. I'm trying to put this on the screen. It's not showing. But the question is, thank you so much, B. Calhoun, for the super chat. And the question is, isn't the trafficking based on the escorts who traveled to multiple states? No, it's not. That's transportation for prostitution. That's not trafficking. The prostitutes are willingly doing this. Trafficking is when you get someone to engage in commercial X based on fraud, force, or coercion. For Cassie, it was both fraud. It was fraud, force, or coercion. They're alleging because of how he had the music video deal. He coerced her, saying, I'm going to release these X tapes to your parents and other people. It was also telling her, oh, yeah, we're going to release your album. And he's really not putting into it. Fraud, force, or coercion was for her. In this case, though, no, trafficking is not the prostitutes. The prostitutes are exclusively prostitution. So that's why I'm saying, so the difference between prostitution and trafficking is the force, the fraud, or coercion. Okay. Somebody said, it's my understanding that Diddy was having his staff purchase substances and distributing them to people at his parties. He was. But I'm saying this witness, this Jane, hasn't testified to that. She's only said he got drugs, but that only she and him used it. Other witnesses have testified to that. So that's why previously I've said there has been evidence presented pursuit for RICO for that distribution. Multiple of the assistants talked about going to the pharmacy, getting substances for him, getting extra ones, having them for the parties, things like that. Thank you so much for that super chat, Jazzy. All right, let's see, we got them all. All right. Okay, guys, that's all I got for today. I'm trying to run away from this rain. Drop your questions below. I'm going to try to do a little recap over the weekend of what went down this week. Overall, there's still a lot to be seen with Jane Doe, but I just don't think that I think that financial fraud, the fraud based on him saying, "Oh, I'll take you on another trip and you won't have to, do it to these hookers on the new trip." I think that mixed with the financial issue of she was already getting 7,000 a month on child support and living wherever, and now 2 years into the relationship, for the first time, he starts paying her rent and claiming that is sufficient coercion. Ugh, I think that's going to be a hard sell. Y'all let me know below. Take care. I'm your legal bestie, Attorney Symone.